Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're heading straight into the breathtaking, totally rugged mountains of Uttarakhand in northern India. Now, this region is often called Devbhoomi, which translates to the abode of the gods. But look, we aren't just here to talk about the stunning geography. We're going to dig into the profound, honestly almost magical connection between the people of the Himalayas and their environment. It's a connection kept alive through incredibly unique music, intense shamanic rituals, and some seriously deep-rooted folklore. We'll be pulling from recent academic research and cultural studies to see how these traditions are so much more than just old stories. All right, let's jump right in. To really grasp the power of Himalayan folklore, we actually have to start with a pretty chilling mystery. Picture this. You're way up in the mountains, over 16,000 feet above sea level, at a place called Rupkund Lake. Back in 1940, a forest ranger stumbles upon something terrifying. Hundreds of mummified human skeletons just scattered around and frozen in the glacial ice. For decades, the outside world was completely baffled. I mean, who were these people? Lost traders? An ancient army? Nobody knew. But the local people of the region, they already knew the answer, and they had known it for centuries. It turns out, modern science just needed some time to catch up with the local stories. In 2019, a massive study published in Nature tested 38 DNA samples from the lake. The results were wild. They found genetics tracing back to India, Southeast Asia, and astonishingly, even the Mediterranean and Greece, dating back up to 1,200 years. They also noticed distinct, round dents on the skulls. Now, match that up with local Kumaoni folklore. They have this traditional song about the doomed pilgrimage of a king named Jasdaval. As the myth goes, the king angered a local goddess, and she retaliated by raining down iron-like hail on his entire entourage. Those skull dents found by scientists, they perfectly match the iron-like hail described in the song. So the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. What we often just brush off as a myth is actually a highly accurate living oral history. Which brings us to part 1, Rhythms of the Himalayas, how geography shapes the music. So you might be wondering, if folklore is a living history, how on earth is it preserved so perfectly over hundreds of years without written books? Well, the answer lies right in the rhythm of the mountains. Recent ethnomusicology research shows that the mountainous terrain itself literally dictates the melodies and lyrics of Uttarakhand. The steep ridges, the rivers, the agricultural cycles, they are entirely woven into the music. And here's the really important part. Women act as the ultimate cultural preservers here. While navigating the extreme hardships of Himalayan life, patriarchal constraints, and often the long separation from migrating husbands, women embed their lived experiences and deep ecological wisdom into these folk songs. The music acts as an emotional release, but also as a communal archive. While the women are the vocal preservers, the rhythmic backbone belongs to the dal, a traditional drum. Actually, scratch that. Calling it just a drum doesn't really do it justice. It's governed by an ancient, sacred text known as the Dal Sagar, which dictates a precise rhythmic vernacular. This drum has its own incredibly complex grammar. We're talking specific syllables drawn from how the drummer uses their fingers, their palm, and even their knee. It's a full-blown language that drives the socio-religious functions of the whole community. In fact, tradition says the syllables of the dal actually mirror the 14 cosmic sounds that emerged from the drum of Lord Shiva himself. Because the dal was literally its own language, it had some insane practical applications. Think about when the Gurkhas invaded the Garhwal region. The locals didn't use carrier pigeons or runners to sound the alarm. Instead, drummers were stationed along the high mountain ridges. They played specific, coded beats to transmit the warning from one ridge to the next. In just half a day, that message traveled across vast mountain ranges, all the way to the capital in Srinagar. King Praduma Shah heard the beat, decoded the warning, and managed to escape to Dehradun. It was basically a Himalayan telegraph system built entirely out of rhythm. Moving into Section 2, Jagar, Waking the Gods, the Himalayan Shamanic Ritual. If we shift our focus from the drum as a battlefield telegraph to its role in deep spiritual invocation, we find the Jagar. The word Jagar literally stems from the Sanskrit word to wake. It's a night-long shamanic ritual designed to wake dormant local deities to seek remedies or justice. The whole thing relies on 3 key people. You have the Sainkar, who is the host of the ritual, then the Dangarya, the physical medium whose body the god will possess, and finally, you have the Jagarya, the lead singer and drummer. Now, this dynamic is fascinating because the Jagarias typically come from lower caste drummer communities who face severe discrimination in everyday society. But during the Jagar, there is a total inversion of the caste hierarchy. The Jagaria becomes a deeply revered, powerful figure who completely commands the spiritual space. So how exactly do you wake a god? The ritual follows a very specific, intense crescendo. Step 1 is the Sanjwali Geet. That's an evening song calling upon all the deities asking for their help. Then we hit step 2, the Asan. This is where things get wild. The Jagaria slowly but relentlessly increases the volume and tempo of the Dahol drums. The rhythm becomes totally hypnotic, pushing the Dangaria into a frenzied trance state until the deity seemingly takes over their body. Finally, once the community's issues are addressed by the incarnated god, we reach step 3, the Prastan. The music shifts tone once again, peacefully guiding the gods back to their heavenly abode. Section 3, Theater of the Epics. The physical and psychological depths of folklore. You can imagine this is an incredibly intense experience. It goes way beyond just a theatrical performance. So what is actually happening in the minds and bodies of the people participating? Cultural expert Dr. D.R. Purohit grounds these mystical possessions in deep human psychology, specifically bringing up Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious. When someone enters a trance during a jagar or during the massive local reenactments of the Mahabharat's epic, they aren't acting. Dr. Purohit argues they are tapping into a deeply ingrained psychological inheritance. Just like humans have an innate fear of snakes coded into our DNA from evolution, these communities have their local myths, fears, and devotions deeply coded into their collective psyche. And under the sheer pressure of those drum beats, that subconscious layer just bursts right to the surface. But look, the depths of these traditions weren't only psychological. The physical stakes were astonishingly high. Take a look at this number, 5. That is the number of performers who tragically fell to their deaths during a specific ritual called the Radha Kandi Ras, which eventually pushed the king to ban the practice in 1925. In this ritual, a performer from the lower caste Bidaya community acted as a literal human sacrifice to ensure agricultural fertility. They would sit on a tiny wooden plank and slide down a massive wet rope suspended hundreds of meters across a terrifying river gorge. If they survived, they were showered with wealth, but obviously many didn't. It just brutally illustrates how tightly intertwined life, death, and folklore really were in the Himalayas. Which brings us to our final section, preserving the oral tradition, modernity versus heritage. The days of extreme rope sliding are gone, thankfully, but the intricate drum beats, the women's songs, and the nighttime jogger rituals are facing a completely new kind of threat today. Take a look at this SWOT analysis we've pulled from recent academic studies on the region. On the helpful side, these traditions are incredible for community cohesion and preserving indigenous knowledge. And there are huge opportunities in bringing this into modern education or using digital platforms to share it globally. But we have to look at the harmful side too. Internally, as soon as the ritual ends, those drummer communities still face harsh caste-based exclusion. And externally, modernizing and massive urban migration are literally emptying out the villages. The younger generation is moving to the cities for work, and that complex, beautiful language of the dole is simply getting lost in the noise of globalized entertainment. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought. Right now, scholars are rushing to record the dole beats, transcribe these jogger songs, and upload them to the internet to save them for posterity. That's great, but a digital audio file cannot induce a trance. A recorded drum loop on a laptop cannot send a warning across a massive mountain range. So when a living, breathing oral tradition, one that is so fundamentally tied to the physical geography of the Himalayas, becomes nothing more than a purely digital archive, what exactly gets lost in translation? Thank you so much for exploring the echoes of Devbhoomi with me today. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you in the next one.